Today, we are beginning a journey that is not about changing the world around you, it is about changing the way you see the world. Throughout history, some of the greatest transformations did not begin with the new technology or new governments. They began with a new single idea. Think about it. Every invention, every scientific breakthrough, every social movement, and every personal success started because someone looked at the world differently. Albert Einstein once encouraged people to question assumptions about space and time. Many philosophers asked whether reality is truly what we perceive. Modern neuroscience now tells us about our brains do not simply record the reality like a camera, they actively interpret it. This means that two people can exercise the same event and come away with completely different conclusions. That realization is both exciting and humbling. In this video, we will explore 15 powerful facts drawn from psychology, neuroscience, behavioral science, history, and everyday life. These are not magic secrets. Instead, they are evidence based ideas that can help us become better thinkers, better learners, and better decision makers. As you listen, I invite you to ask yourself a simple question. What if one belief I hold today is incomplete? Great thinkers throughout history shared one remarkable quality, that they remained curious. They understood that learning begins when certainty ends. During this journey, we will discover that our brains filter far more information than we realize. Fear often grows larger inside our imagination than in reality. Small habits quietly shape our future. The people around us influence our thinking more than we notice. Gratitude changes not only emotions but also the brain itself. Curiosity is one of humanity's greatest superpowers. These lessons are not about becoming perfect, they're about becoming more aware. Awareness is the foundation of wisdom. One important point deserves attention before we continue. Sometimes people believe that changing your thinking means ignoring problems or pretending everything is positive. That is not the message. Positive thinking is not about denying the reality, it is about seeing reality clearly while believing that improvement is possible. Scientists, doctors, engineers, explorers, and innovators all share this mindset. They acknowledge challenges while searching for the solutions. Throughout this video, we will also discuss common controversies and misconceptions surrounding mindset, psychology, and human behavior. Rather than avoiding the difficult questions, we will explore them with openness and evidences. Because genuine learning welcomes thoughtful questions. By the end of this video, I hope you will not simply remember 15 facts. Instead, I hope you begin asking better questions. Questions such as, why do I think the way I do? What assumptions guide my decisions? What habits shape my future without me noticing? How can I become more thoughtful, compassionate, and resilient? The answers to these questions can influence the relationships, careers, health, leadership, and personal happiness. Before moving to our first fact, take a moment to appreciate something remarkable. Among billions of living creatures, human beings possess an extraordinary ability. We can reflect upon our own thoughts. That ability has allowed humanity to build civilizations, discover medicines, explore space, and understand the universe. Never underestimate the power of a single new perspective. Perhaps one idea in today's video will become the beginning of your next breakthrough. So let's begin. Imagine walking into a crowded airport, thousands of conversations are happening simultaneously. Announcements echoes overhead, children laugh, phones ring, People rush in every direction, yet somehow your brain allows you to focus on only a tiny fraction of that information. This happens because your brain is constantly filtering the reality. Every second, your senses receives an enormous amount of information, far more than your conscious mind can process. To avoid becoming overwhelmed, the brain selectively decides what deserves attention. This process is incredibly useful. Without it, everyday life would become mentally exhausting. However, this filtering system has an important consequence. We often mistake our limited perception for complete reality. Psychologists describe several cognitive biases that arise because of this filtering process. For example, confirmation bias encourages us to notice evidences that supports our existing beliefs while overlooking information that challenges them. Suppose two people watch the same debate. One leaves convinced that speaker A clearly won. The other feels equally certain that speaker B performed better. Did they watch different events? No, their brains simply filter different details. Another fascinating example is the frequency illusion. Have you ever learned a new word and suddenly noticed it everywhere? Or perhaps you considered buying a particular car and suddenly saw that model on every road. The car was always there. Your attention simply changed. This demonstrates that perception depends heavily on the focus. Now consider how this applies to everyday life. If someone constantly focuses on the problems, they begin seeing evidence of problems everywhere. If another person deliberately searches for opportunities, they begin discovering possibilities others overlook. Neither person changes reality immediately. They change what they notice within reality. This insight has powerful implications for success, relationships, and emotional well being. Leaders often train themselves to ask constructive questions because questions guide attention. Instead of asking, why is everything going wrong? They ask, what is the next step towards improvement? The second question encourages the brain to search for solutions rather than helplessness. This does not eliminate challenges, it changes the direction of thoughts. Modern neuroscience suggests that repeated patterns of attention strengthen neural pathways. In simple terms, what you repeatedly focus on becomes easier to notice in the future. This is one reason gratitude journals often improve emotional well being. They train attention towards positive experiences without pretending negative experiences do not exist. Now, let us address an important controversy. Some critics argue that if perception is filtered, then objective truth does not exist. That conclusion goes too far. Although perception contains biases, science provides methods for reducing those biases. Experiments, peer review, replication, evidence, critical thinking. These tools help humanity move closer to objective understanding. Recognizing bias does not weaken the science, it makes science even more valuable. Another misunderstanding involves positive thinking. In reality, healthy optimism acknowledges risk while maintaining confidence that solutions can be found. Pilots still check instruments. Doctors still study diseases. Engineers still test bridges. Optimism without evidence becomes wishful thinking. As we continue this video, remember one simple exercise. Whenever you feel completely certain about something, pause briefly and ask, what important information might I be missing? That single question has changed scientific discoveries, business strategies, and personal relationships throughout history. The world became larger the moment we realize our perception is never complete. Fear is one of humanity's oldest survival mechanisms. Long before modern civilization existed, fear protected our ancestors from predators, dangerous informants, and life-threatening situations. Without fear, human beings might never have survived. But today's world presents a different challenge. Many of our greatest fears no longer involve physical danger. Instead, they involve imagined futures, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of criticism, fear of uncertainty. Remarkably, neuroscience shows that the brain often reacts to imagined threats in ways similar to the real ones. Your heart races, breathing becomes shallow, muscles tense, the stress hormones increase, all because of something that has not actually happened. Someone dreams of starting a business but never begins because they imagine failure. Another person wants to speak publicly but imagines everyone laughing. Someone else avoids applying for a better job because they fear rejection before sending the application. In many cases, the imagined scenario never occurs. The fear itself becomes the obstacle. This is why psychologists sometimes describe anxiety as an overestimation of danger combined with an underestimation of one's ability to cope. History provides countless examples. Many famous inventors experienced repeated failures before achieving the success. Explorers sailed into unknown oceans despite uncertainty. Scientists proposed ideas that were initially rejected before eventually transforming the human knowledge. If they had allowed imagined fears to control every decision, many of humanity's greatest achievements might never have happened. This doesn't mean fear should be ignored. Fear often contains useful information. It can remind us to prepare carefully, evaluate risk, and improve our plans. The goal is not to eliminate the fear, the goal is to distinguish between useful caution and unnecessary limitations. One practical strategy involves asking three questions whenever fear appears. What evidence supports this fear? What evidence challenges it? If the worst reasonable outcome happened, how would I respond? Now let us consider a common controversy. Some motivational speakers claim that fear is merely an illusion. Certain fears are entirely justified. Natural disasters, medical emergencies, unsafe environments, financial risk. These deserve careful attention. Healthy courage is not the absence of fear. Healthy courage is acting wisely. Instead of viewing nervousness as proof they cannot succeed, they view it as evidence that the moment matters. That shift in interpretation changes performance dramatically. Gratitude also plays an unexpected role. When we appreciate what we already possess, uncertainty becomes easier to manage. Instead of constantly worrying about the losing everything, gratitude reminds us how much has already been gained. Finally, remember this important truth. Every meaningful achievement exists on the opposite side of uncertainty. Learning requires uncertainty, growth requires uncertainty, discovery requires uncertainty, progress requires uncertainty. If humanity had waited until fear disappeared completely, we might never have explored new continents, discovered life saving medicines, or reached the moon. The next time fear whispers, what if everything goes wrong? Ask another question. What if this is the opportunity that changes my life? Sometimes the greatest transformation begins not because the fear disappears, but because the courageous quietly decides to take one small step forward. What does it mean to be happy? For centuries, philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual teachers have searched for the answer. Some believed happiness comes from wealth, others believed it comes from relationships, wisdom, purpose, or inner peace. Modern psychology suggests that while life circumstances certainly matter, our daily habits and thoughts patterns also plays a major role in shaping our emotional well-being. Think about the two people who experience the same rainy day. One complains that the weather has ruined everything, the other enjoys the cool breeze. reads a book, or spends time with the family. The weather is identical, yet their experiences are completely different. The difference lies in interpretation. Our brains are naturally wired to pay attention to potential dangers. A survival mechanism known as a negativity bias, thousands of years ago, this bias helped our ancestors stay alive by quickly noticing the threats. Today, however, that same tendency can cause us to focus excessively on the mistakes, criticism, or uncertainty while overlooking the many positive aspects of the life. This doesn't mean we should ignore the problems. Instead, it reminds us that we can intentionally train our mind to notice both challenges and the opportunities. One of the most researched practices for improving emotional well-being is the gratitude. Keeping a simple gratitude journal, expressing appreciation to others, or taking a few moments each day to reflect on the positive experiences can strengthen positive emotional patterns over the time. The gratitude doesn't erase difficulties, but it broadens our perspective so that problems are not the only things we notice. These habits may seem ordinary, but their long term effects can be extraordinary. Now, consider another important truth. Many people postpone their happiness. They say, I will be happy when I earn more money. I will be happy when I buy a bigger house. I will be happy when everything becomes perfect. The challenge is that the life continually creates new goals. If happiness is always postponed until the next achievement, satisfaction remains just beyond the reach. Let's also address an important controversy. Sometimes the people interpret positive psychology as encouraging people to always stay positive. This misunderstanding can be harmful. Healthy emotional well-being, well-being includes sadness, disappointment, grief, frustration, and uncertainty. These emotions provide valuable information about our experiences and relationships. The goal is not the constant happiness. The goal is emotional resilience, the ability to recover, adapt, and continue moving forward. Many individuals who inspire others have faced illness, financial struggles, personal loss, or professional setbacks. Their happiness came not from the absence of challenges, but from finding meaning despite them. The simple questions shift attention towards growth, appreciation, and connections. Before moving forward, remember this powerful thought. Happiness is less like discovering hidden treasure and more like cultivating a garden. Every positive habit is a seed. Every grateful thought is water. Every act of kindness is sunlight. With patience and consistency, those small daily actions grew into a richer, more meaningful life. Few words creates as much emotional discomfort as a word failure. Most people naturally want to avoid it, yet throughout history, failure has often been one of humanity's greatest teachers. Consider how children learn to walk. A child stands, falls, stands again, falls again. No one calls that child a failure. Instead, we recognize the process as learning. Somehow, as adults, we often forget this lesson. We begin to believe that making mistakes says something permanent about who we are, but mistakes and identity are not the same thing. A failed experiment does not mean a scientist is incapable. A rejected manuscript does not mean a writer lacks talent. An unsuccessful business does not mean an entrepreneur has no future. Instead, each experience provides information. Information helps us improve. People with a growth mindset believes that abilities can improve through efforts, practice, and learning. Those with a fixed mindset often believe that intelligence or the talent cannot change significantly. Imagine two students receiving poor exam results. The first student thinks I'm simply not intelligent enough. The second student thinks I didn't prepare effectively. I need a different strategy. Many successful inventors refined hundreds or even thousands of prototypes before creating practical inventions. Scientists regularly publish studies showing hypotheses that were not supported by evidences. Engineers redesign systems repeatedly before achieving reliability. Every major advancement includes unsuccessful attempts. Failure is not the opposite of progress. Failure is often a part of progress. Now let's consider why failure feels so painful. Our brains are social. Humans evolved in communities where acceptance increased survival. Every new skill begins with awkwardness. Learning a language, driving a car, playing a musical instrument, public speaking, programming computers, cooking, athletics, the early stages rarely feel comfortable. Another useful question is, what is this experience trying to teach me? That single question transforms disappointment into education. Failure only becomes valuable when combined with the reflection, adaptation, and persistence. Another misunderstanding involves comparing ourselves with others. Social media often shows polished highlights rather than real journeys. We see finished achievements but rarely witness years of practice, mistakes, revisions, and persistence behind them. This creates unrealistic expectations. Progress becomes much easier to recognize. Before leaving this slide, video and the slide, remember an inspiring truth. Every expert was once a beginner. Every professional was once experienced. Every confident speaker once felt nervous. Every accomplished scientist once asked simple questions. Your current level does not determine your future potential. Success belongs not only to the most talented people, it often belongs to those who remain curious enough to continue learning after the setbacks. Imagine placing one small drop of water onto a stone. Nothing appears to happen. Another drop falls. Still nothing. Days pass, months pass, years pass. Eventually, continuous drops begin to shape the stone itself. Small actions create extraordinary long-term change. Human life works in remarkably similar ways. Many people believe that dramatic success comes from dramatic decisions. Sometimes it does, but much more often, remarkable life are built through thousands of ordinary choices made consistently over time. Every morning presents dozens of decisions. Should I wake up immediately or press the snooze button? Should I read something educational or endlessly scroll through social media? Behavioral scientists often describe this as a compound effect. Just as compound interest gradually increases financial investment, small positive habits gradually strengthen health, knowledge, relationships, confidence, and opportunity. One healthy and unhealthy meal changes little. Years of unhealthy eating affects the health. One skipped workout matters very little. Years without physical activity creates different outcomes. One evening spent learning a new skill may seem minor. The future is often built quietly. One day rarely changes everything. Thousands of days do. This principle applies to our thoughts. Repeated thoughts gradually become beliefs. Repeated beliefs influence actions. Repeated actions becomes habits. Habits shape character. Character influences destiny. This chain reminds us that lasting change usually begins inside before becoming visible outside. Space missions resulted from millions of careful calculations. Large accomplishments are collections of small actions. Now let us discuss a common misconception. Many people become discouraged because progress feels invisible at first. This is perfectly normal. Growth often occurs beneath the surface before becoming obvious. Similarly, learning, discipline, and resilience often strengthen quietly before others notice visible success. Patience becomes an essential companion to persistence. Another controversy worth addressing is the belief that tiny habits alone guarantee success. Instead, it reminds us to focus on what we can control while adapting wisely to what we can't. Ask yourself every morning, what is one small action today that my future self will thank me for? Perhaps it is reading 10 pages, calling a loved one, learning one new concept, walking for 20 minutes, saving a small amount of money, practicing gratitude. These actions may seem insignificant today. Years from now, they may become some of the most important decisions you ever made. As we conclude this section, remember a powerful truth. Your future rarely arrives suddenly. It quietly grows from the choices you repeat every day. The remarkable life you admire in others is often built not through one extraordinary moment, but through thousands of ordinary moments handled with extraordinary consistency. And that, perhaps, that is one of the most encouraging facts of all. You do not have to transform your entire life today. You simply need to make today's next decision a little wiser than yesterday's. That single choice is where lasting transformation begins. Imagine planting the same seed in two different places. One seed is placed in the fertile soil, receiving sunlight, water, and the proper care. The other is planted in dry ground with little nourishment. Although the seeds are identical, their environments produces very different outcomes. Human beings are remarkably similar, while each person has unique abilities and experiences. The environment we live in significantly influences how we think, learn, behave, and make decisions. When we hear the word environment, we often think only about the physical surroundings. But your environment is much broader than that. It includes the people you spend time with, the conversations you have, the books you read, the videos you watch, the music you listen to, your workplace, your community, and even the digital content you consume every day. Modern psychology shows that our brains constantly absorb information from our surroundings. This process is not always conscious. Over time, repeated exposure to certain ideas actually shapes our beliefs, expectations, and habits. A child born anywhere in the world can potentially learn any language, yet the language they ultimately speak depends almost entirely on the environment in which they grew up. The same principle applies to many of our attitudes, preferences, and assumptions. Researchers have also studied what is often called social influences. Sorry. We naturally observe the behavior of those around us and often adapt to match the norms of our group. If the people around us value learning, integrity, curiosity, and the kindness, we are more likely to develop those qualities ourselves. If dishonesty, negativity, or constant complaining becomes the norm, those attitudes can also spread. Every click, search, and recommendation shapes the information we receive. Algorithms often show us more of what we already engage with. While this can be convenient, it can also create information bubbles where we repeatedly encounter ideas similar to our existing beliefs while seeing fewer alternative perspectives. For this reason, critical thinking has become more important than ever. Ask yourself, am I seeking information that challenges my assumptions? Am I listening respectfully to different viewpoints? Am I relying on incredible evidences rather than sensational headlines? Healthy thinking requires intellectual humility, the willingness to admit that we do not know everything. History offers many examples of environments encouraging extraordinary achievement. Positive informants encourage curiosity rather than fear. Now, let us address an important controversy. Some people argue that environment determines everything and that individuals have little personal responsibility. Others believe that success depends entirely on the personal effort. The reality is more balanced. Environment influences us profoundly, but it doesn't completely define us. Throughout history, countless individuals have overcome difficult circumstances through determination, education, supportive mentors, and perseverance. At the same time, society benefits when it creates environments that give more people opportunities to succeed. Recognizing the importance of environment encourages compassion without removing accountability. Take a few minutes to evaluate your own environment. Ask yourself which conversations leave me feeling inspired, which habits are encouraged by the people around me. Does my daily media consumption increases knowledge or simply consume time? What small changes could create a healthier environment from the growth? Sometimes changing your future begins with the changing what surrounds you today. Imagine two people standing before the same mysterious door. The first person says, I am afraid to open it because I don't know what's inside. The second person says, I wonder what's inside. The situation is identical. The difference is curiosity. Curiosity is one of humanity's greatest strengths. It has driven explorers across oceans, scientists into laboratories, engineers into workshops, artists into studios, and philosophers into deep reflection. Nearly every major discovery in the history began with someone asking a simple question: why, how, and what if? These three questions sorry, have transformed the civilization. Think about everyday childhood. Children ask hundreds of questions. Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Why do people dream? They are not embraced by curiosity. They embrace it. Unfortunately, many adults gradually stop asking the questions. Fear of appearing ununiformed, pressure to fit in, or the comfort of familiar routines can reduce curiosity over the time. Yet learning never truly ends. Neuroscience tells us that the brain remains capable of learning throughout the life. This ability, known as neuroplasticity, means our brains continue forming new connections as we practice new skills, gain knowledge, and explore unfamiliar ideas. This is incredibly encouraging. Curiosity also improves the creativity. When we ask better questions, we generate more possible solutions. Instead of asking, why can't this work? Curious thinkers ask, how might this work? Notice the differences. One question closes possibilities, the others opens them. Many of the world's greatest inventions emerged because someone refused to accept that existing limitations were permanent. Electric lighting, modern medicine, air travel, computers, internet, space exploration, artificial intelligence. Each breakthrough began with a curiosity. Curiosity also strengthens empathy. When we become curious about another person's experiences, beliefs, the backgrounds, we become better listeners. Instead of immediately judging, we begin understanding. Healthy curiosity transforms conversations from debates into opportunities for learning. Scientific discoveries have cured diseases, improved agriculture, and expanded communication. The same scientific knowledge has sometimes contributed to destructive technologies. Knowledge itself is neutral. Wisdom determines how knowledge is being used. Questioning should not be confused with disrespect. Science progresses because researchers ask questions. Medicine improves because doctors question existing treatments. Businesses innovate because entrepreneurs question current methods. Healthy societies encourage respectful inquiry while remaining open to the evidences. In reality, intelligence often begins with asking thoughtful questions. Many accomplished researchers readily admit how much remains unknown. One practical habit is to ask one meaningful question every day. For example, what skill would improve my life the most? What assumption am I making? What can I learn from someone who disagrees with me? What problem can I help solve? Questions shape attention. Attention shapes learning. Learning shapes opportunity. As we conclude this section, remember this inspiring truth. Curiosity is not reserved for the scientists, inventors, or professionals. It belongs to everyone. Every new book you read, every thoughtful conversation you have, every skill you practice, every culture you explore, every mistake you examine expands the map of your mind. The future belongs not only to those who have the most knowledge today, but also to those who remain curious enough to continue learning tomorrow. Throughout this video, we have explored powerful ideas about perception, fear, habits, failure, empowerment, and curiosity. A natural question arises: are these ideas supported by evidence? The answer is yes, but with important nuance. Scientific knowledge develops continuously. Researchers refine theories as new evidence emerges. Good science is not built upon certainty alone, it is built upon observation, testing, revision, and replication. Let us examine several scientific fields that support the concepts discussed so far. The first is neuroscience. Brain imaging technologies have dramatically improved our understanding of how the brain processes information. Researchers have identified networks involved in attention, memory, emotion, and decision making. Studies consistently demonstrate that attention influences perception and that repeated experiences strengthen neural pathways through learning. Second, behavioral psychology. Psychologists have spent decades studying how habits form. Research suggests that repeated behaviors become increasingly automatic through consistent practice. Third is cognitive psychology. Scientists have identified many cognitive biases, systematic ways in which human thinking can become inaccurate. Confirmation bias, availability bias, anchoring, and overconfidences are only a few examples. Fourth is positive psychology. Researchers studying well-being have found that gratitude, meaningful relationships, act of kindness, optimism, and purpose are associated with improved psychological health for many individuals. Fifth is social psychology. Experiments have repeatedly demonstrated that people influences one another's behavior, expectations, and decision making. This explains why supportive communities often encourages growth while unhealthy environments may reinforce harmful habits. Sixth is educational psychology. Research on learning emphasizes the importance of feedback, deliberate practice, and persistence. Skills develop gradually through repeated improvement rather than instant perfection. Space exploration resulted from generations of scientific collaboration. Technological innovation emerged through continuous refinement. Scientific methods excel at investigating measurable phenomena. Questions involving ethics, personal meaning, spirituality, beauty, or individual purpose often requires philosophical, cultural, or personal reflection alongside scientific understanding. Recognizing these boundaries strengthens science rather than weakening it. Another controversy deserves discussion. Sometimes popular books, motivational speakers, or social media creators oversimplify scientific findings to create dramatic headlines. Responsible learning requires both curiosity and skepticism. These qualities complement one another. Curiosity encourages exploration. Skepticism encourages careful evaluation. Finally, consider one of humanity's greatest scientific strengths. Science welcomes corrections when better evidence appears, theories improve. This willingness to learn from mistakes has enabled extraordinary advances in medicine, engineering, agriculture, communication, and countless other fields. As we prepare to enter the final section of this video, remember a message: the knowledge is powerful, but knowledge combined with humility, evidence, compassion, and lifelong curiosity becomes true wisdom, and wisdom is one of the greatest gifts any person can develop. Every powerful idea attracts questions, criticism, and sometimes misunderstanding. That is not a weakness, it is part of the learning process. Throughout this video, we have explored how our thoughts, habits, environment, curiosity, and emotions influences our life. Before we conclude, it is important to examine several common misconceptions so that we develop a balanced understanding rather than accepting oversimplified conclusions. Positive thinking means pretending problems do not exist. This is perhaps the most common misunderstanding. Positive thinking is not ignoring the reality. If a doctor ignored a patient's illness, that would not be optimism, it would be negligence. If an engineer ignored structural flaws in a bridge, that would not be confidence, it would be carelessness. Healthy optimism begins and acknowledging reality honestly. It asks what is happening, what evidence do we have, what solutions are available. Positive thinking is about maintaining hope while taking responsible action. Second misconception is success depends only on the mindset. Mindset matters greatly, but it is not the only factor. Education, health, opportunity, economic conditions, family support, public policy, and unexpected life events also influences the outcomes. Two equally hardworking people may experience different opportunities because of circumstances beyond their control. Misconception three: fear should disappear before taking action. Many people wait until they feel completely confident. Unfortunately, that moment rarely arrives. Most successful individuals experience nervousness before important events. The difference is not the absence of fear, the difference is preparation combined with the courage. Misconception four: failure means I am not capable. Failure describes an event, it does not define a person's identity. Every scientist has encountered unsuccessful experiments. Every athlete has lost competitions. Every entrepreneur has faced setbacks. Misconception five: changing habits to produce immediate results. Real change usually happens gradually. Healthy eating improves health over months and years. Learning a language requires consistent practice. Healthy balance. The purpose of this video is not to encourage blind optimism. It is to encourage thoughtful optimism. That means facing facts honestly, remaining open to new evidences, learning continuously, acting responsibly, appreciating progress while acknowledging the challenges. As we move into the next slide, remember an important principle. Balanced thinking is stronger than extreme thinking. When we balance optimism with realism, curiosity with skepticism, and confidence with humility, we make wiser decisions. In the idea should withstand thoughtful questions. Science advances because people challenge assumptions respectfully. Criticism one isn't positive thinking, just wishful thinking. The answer is no. Wishful thinking ignores evidence. Positive thinking recognizes reality while believing improvement is possible. Second criticism: can thoughts really influence success? Thoughts alone cannot guarantee success. However, thoughts influences the decisions. Criticism three: life is unfair. Doesn't this documentary ignore that? Life contains inequality, uncertainty, illness, accidents, and unexpected hardships. Recognizing these realities does not make hope meaningless. Instead, hope becomes even more valuable because it helps people continue moving forward despite difficulties. Criticism four: if environment influences us, do individuals still have responsibility? Yes, environment influences behavior, but it does not eliminate personal choice. People can learn new skills, seek mentors, change habits, pursue education, and gradually reshape their surroundings. Criticism five: science changes. How can we trust it? Science changes because it improves. When better evidence appears, researchers update their understanding. That willingness to revise conclusions is one of science's greatest strengths. Changing ideas in response to evidence is a sign of intellectual honesty, not the weakness. Thinking like a scientist, scientists rarely ask, how can I prove I am right? Instead, they ask, what does the evidence suggest? That attitude is valuable far beyond the laboratories. The value of intellectual humility. One of the wisest statements a person can make is, I may be mistaken. This does not weaken confidence, it strengthens learning. People who remain open to new information continue growing throughout the life. We have explored perception, fear, habits, failure, informant, curiosity, science, and critical thinking. Now comes the most important question: how do we apply these ideas in the everyday life? Knowledge becomes valuable only when transformed into an action. The first practice is gratitude. Gratitude does not require perfect circumstances. It begins by recognizing what already exists. Perhaps you have supportive family members. Perhaps you have access to education. Perhaps you have recovered from the past difficulties. Perhaps you simply have another opportunity to begin again today. Gratitude changes our focus from constant scarcity towards appreciation without ignoring the future goals. The second practice is lifelong learning. Read books, listen to thoughtful conversations, study history, learn about the science, develop practical skills. Every new idea expands your understanding of the world. Try asking, what can I learn from this experience? Questions direct attention. Better questions often produces better decisions. The fourth practice is building healthy habits. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. Start with one habit, read 10 pages, exercise for 20 minutes, practice gratitude for 5 minutes, spend 1 hour learning a valuable skill. Keep mentors, creating spaces that support learning and creativity. Small environmental changes often produce surprisingly large behavioral improvement. The sixth practice is embracing respectful disagreement. You do not need to fear different opinions. Listening carefully often teaches us something valuable, even when we ultimately disagree. Intellectual humility strengthens understanding. Seventh practice is remembering that progress is rarely linear. Some days will feel productive, others will feel difficult. Growth often includes the setbacks that is normal. Do not judge your entire journey by one difficult day. Gratitude for humanity. Take a moment to appreciate the generations before us. Millions of researchers, teachers, engineers, doctors, artists, explorers, farmers, inventors, and workers contributed to the world we enjoy today. Electricity, modern medicine, transportation, communication, education, scientific knowledge, libraries. These achievements were built through countless acts of curiosity, persistence, and cooperation. We inherit extraordinary opportunities because previous generations continued learning. Our responsibility is to build wisely for the future generations. Finally, routine. Consider ending each day by asking yourself 5 questions. What did I learn today? What challenged my assumptions? What am I grateful for? How did I help someone? What is one improvement I will make tomorrow? These simple questions encourage continuous growth. As we move towards our conclusion, remember this important message. A meaningful life is not created by knowing everything, it is being created by remaining curious enough to keep learning. We have reached the end of our journey, but hopefully not the end of your curiosity. Today we explored 15 ideas capable of changing the way we think, not because they provide magical shortcuts, not because they promise instant success, but because they encourage deeper understanding. We learned that our brains filter reality. Fear often exaggerates future response possibilities. Happiness grows through meaningful habits. Failure provides information. Small decisions shape our future. Empowerment influences our thinking. Curiosity creates opportunity. Every great civilization advanced because people questioned assumptions. Every meaningful relationship grows through understanding. Every personal transformation begins with one decision. Perhaps that decision begins today. Maybe today's documentary encourages you to read one new book, learn one new skill, ask one better question, practice one healthier habit, help one person, express gratitude more often. Small actions repeated consistently shape extraordinary futures. A message about the human potential. Knowledge has enabled humanity to cross oceans, cure diseases, build telescopes capable of observing distant galaxies, communicate instantly across continents, and explore space. Gratitude. Thank you for investing your time in the learning. Time is one of life's most valuable resources. Choosing to spend it expanding your understanding is an investment that continues paying dividends throughout the life. If you enjoyed this video and would like to continue exploring the science, psychology, history, philosophy, human behavior, and fascinating ideas from around the world, I invite you to join our growing learning community. Subscribe to the Story Atlas Myths. Share this video with the friends, family, students, and colleagues who enjoy thoughtful conversations and lifelong learning. Leave a comment answering one question. Which of these 15 facts changed the way you think the most and why? Your perspective may inspire someone else to begin their own journey of learning. Until our next exploration, continue asking the questions, continue learning, continue growing, and remember the greatest discoveries do not always happen in distant laboratories or on remote mountains. Sometimes the greatest discovery is a new way of thinking. Thank you for watching.